Hey, how's everybody doing? You stay tuned because the show is coming up, and I'm going to tell you in one hot minute why everyone shouldn't hate Tim Tebow as much as I do.
And after the one hot minute, we'll talk about the NBA season, and we'll also get in touch with the NFL playoffs and see how we think it's going to pan out.
Stay tuned because the show starts now.
Come inside, the show's about to start. Guaranteed to blow your head apart.
Right. I'm calling you out, 373. You're making the rest of the street
the American football country.
If you've been in movies and you've got millions.
in what? I mean, say what you will about him.
Best team in the NBA.
Season's greetings. Welcome to Talking Trash. Jason Piche here. Gabe Rodriguez there. Still don't have that new opening, but Rome not built in a day, like we always say. But a new outro today.
Baby steps, baby steps.
We'll get there. I am seething for my one hot minute. So whenever you want to tell me to start the clock, I'm ready to go.
I want to see if you could get redder than your T-shirt right now.
maybe possible. All right, here we go. Over the weekend, obviously I am a Broncos fan, but I want to take that right out of the equation and try to be a regular fan because I'm not sure why everybody hates the Broncos as much as they do, and I think it's because the media just talks about them all the time and they can't stop talking about Tebow, and everybody loves Tebow, and NHL players are Tebowing on the ice, and it's just everywhere. But I don't understand why everyone has turned their hatred on the Denver Broncos when they just played the most hated team, or what used to be one of the most hated teams, in the New England Patriots. Patriot fans had a weird reaction to this win as if it was one of the biggest wins they've ever had. You were the better team and you won. Congratulations. Like, what's the big deal? Well, I'll tell you what the big deal was. They were scared. That's why you all got excited and were all worried about, oh, we don't want to lose to Tim Tebow. We don't want to go out like that. So the next time that you're hating on Tim Tebow and the Broncos, just think about the fact that, well, maybe you're a little bit scared about losing to them, and that's probably why you don't like them. But when it comes right down to it, Tebow hasn't done anything to make you mad personally. And it's not his fault that he's getting all the media coverage he is and that people have fallen in love with him. What can the man do? What can he do? What's he supposed to do, Gabe? Stop selling himself?
Thing is, Tebow doesn't even sell himself. His play does, his fans do.
Right.
But in your case, I mean, you got to accept it. With whom much is given, much is expected. And once you're on the pedestal, guys are going to try to tear you down. So.
Yeah, I suppose. I mean, it happens all the time. I mean, people have definitely tried to tear down, even Tom Brady for that matter. But I felt like his emphatic spike after he ran one in was sort of his way of saying, hey, talk about me, I'm Tom Brady. And it was kind of like, relax, buddy, how many rings you got? Like, settle down.
You don't think it has anything to do with him wearing Uggs or dating Giselle Bundchen?
Well, that's a whole
Being
different.
married to her.
I mean, I don't think I'd want to spike the ball there. I think I'd just be happy about it.
Well, you know, one player's content, another man's lament. But now to switch gears, just want to talk about for my one hot minute. Want to talk to you about bowl games. And football, there's about 50 different bowl games, it seems like, and every team's playing in one. But behind the scenes of bowl games, there's really a lot that goes on. You know, there's all the banquets, and at the banquets, most of the teams and players receive a bowl gift. This year, I want to talk about the Poinsettia Bowl and two players from Louisiana Tech. One of the gifts given out to players there is a gift card from Best Buy for $300. And two of the players, one Quentin Patton and the other Adrian Cole, decided to give their gift cards at the banquet to kids who were there from the Make-A-Wish Foundation. So a lot of times in athletics, you hear a lot of the bad, a lot of the negativity, but these two players stepped up and, you know, without prompt, they decided to do something nice during the holidays and give their $300 gift cards to two needy kids from the Make-A-Wish Foundation. So I think they should be commended, and after all, it is the season of giving. So, you know, maybe that'll help cheer you up a little, Jason.
It sure does, Gabe. And I know whenever I come with the devil horns, I know you're going to be right behind me with the halo. That's a great story, and you don't hear enough about that kind of stuff. And it's weird to me that they would even be allowed to give these players those things in the gift bags, because you always hear about players not being able to accept gifts. And yet, well, there's a pretty big gift. I mean, it's nice that they're passing it along, but where's the line? I feel like the NCAA keeps it blurry on purpose so that they can get away with whatever they want. And maybe that's why they do it, but they need to just either allow some certain things or not allow them. Because I didn't know where you were going with that story. I should have known. But I thought for sure you were going to say that they gave them to the wrong people and they got in trouble. But it turned out that now the NCAA
That's probably
has to
another bowl game. That might be like the Rose Bowl gift or something like that. So we'll see.
And that's odd because now they give them to Make-A-Wish kids and the NCAA probably turns to look the other way. But if they gave that to a family friend or something like that, it'd be a scandal, right? So what's really the difference there? I don't know.
Well, with the NCAA, you never know. Another interesting story with the NCAA, Georgia football head coach Mark Richt gave out of his own pocket bonuses to a few of his assistant coaches. The assistant coaches were promised in their contracts that they would receive bonuses. However, the school, due to budget cuts, decided that they could not give the assistant coaches their bonuses. So Mark Richt came out of the goodness of his heart, came out of his own pocket and gave his assistants the bonuses he thought they were due for doing a great job. But of course now the NCAA has
A problem with that.
leveled Georgia with some violations. So you can't win, you can't lose. The NCAA is really arbitrary, so hopefully one day it'll get blown up.
And while we're talking about good things, I just wanted to mention how awesome a story it is. I saw it on Yahoo today. Braylon Edwards giving $10,000 to 79 different students. There was 100 students, and he said, hey, if you get a grade point average above 2.5, I'll give you $10,000 for college when the time comes. And the time came, and 79 of those students came through, and now Braylon Edwards is basically coughing up almost a year's salary for these kids, and it was in Cleveland, and he doesn't even play in Cleveland anymore. But I think it's great to see that kind of thing going on, and it's just another happy holidays story that you're getting at this time of year where it seems like there's a little less bad stuff in the press. I don't know.
Well, I just think you're looking for it now, and right now I want to move on to our word association. So Jason, you want to start us off or what?
I will. I've got Ohio State Bowl ban.
Well deserved.
Elway's endorsement of Tebow.
Ingenuine.
Ooh. Outdoor hockey games.
Cold.
Yu Darvish.
Overrated.
NFL MVP. Question mark.
Aaron Rodgers.
All right. That's it. That was my 5.
All right.
I thought for sure you were, I was expecting you to be like, Yu Darvish. Who's that? We would have accepted that.
That might be that still may be the answer after he comes over. Who is that?
We'll see. He's an Asian pitcher who's supposed to be. The Rangers got rights to sign him to a contract first, but he's the best pitcher over in Japan. So
Yeah, so we'll see if he's another Dice K, another flop, or if he actually lives up to the hype that he's had from over there. So
we'll see. It looks like he's got game, but he also looks like the kind of guy who likes to party and have a good time off screen. He's pretty well-known superstar out over there, even off the field. So
Well, if he
whether he
like-
gets caught up in that kind of stuff here in America, we'll see. Could hurt him.
Well, fortunately, he's not in the Red Sox clubhouse, so, or else that would be happening during games. So, glad to see he may be in Texas then.
Yeah, you never know. Maybe he will sign. Maybe he won't.
All right, so hey, you ready for your
I'm prepared.
word association? Okay, prepared.
Always ready.
All right, so first one, Floyd Mayweather.
Mouthy.
Okay, Rex Ryan.
Well, he's also mouthy, so I'm going to say mouthy.
All right, if you say mouthy on this one, you're disqualified.
Okay.
Chris Paul trade.
I'm going to go with lob-tacular.
Okay, like that. And who is your Super Bowl favorite?
It's still going with the Packers.
Okay, all right.
I went Packers all the way from the beginning of the year when we did our NFL preview. I'm sticking with them. I don't feel like this loss to the Chiefs is going to hurt them as much. I feel like it's going to help them, if anything. Gets that pressure off their back. I mean, they're reminding me a lot of the Denver Broncos back in '98 season when they were repeating, or they had won the championship the year before, started out the gate 13-0, then they lost to your Giants. And the next thing you know, it seemed like the pressure was lifted off them. They lost the next game even, and they got off people's radar. people just stopped kind of thinking about them. And then all of a sudden, boom, there they were again, easily winning the Super Bowl over the Falcons and getting the job done. I feel like this could be the same kind of thing for the Packers. Now they don't have to worry about that. They don't have to think about that. They just have to go out and repeat.
You see, I always question why being undefeated, why is there pressure? Like, there should be that feeling of invincibility. There's no chinks in the armor. We've won. No one's beaten us. No one can touch us.
Ask college football teams. It happens all the time.
I know. But I just feel like, I understand sometimes they say, oh, when you lose, it refocuses and sometimes galvanizes the troops. I guess one thing that'll be good is if they can clinch home field advantage this week, they can actually rest their guys without having to answer the questions
Right.
of should we go for the perfect season or not go for the perfect season. So that's at least one headache that's alleviated for the Packers.
Yeah, it really is. And I think nowadays with the media pressure as much as it is, and by the way, I'm sure the 72 Dolphins just keep calling you and leaving messages to try to make sure you get no sleep. So at least now the Packers will be able to get a little rest, and those Dolphins have cracked the champagne once again. Although I don't understand why those Dolphins take so much credit for what they did. They went 13-0. This is back when the season was shorter, and they went 13-0, including the Super Bowl. We've had teams that went 16-0 and made it to the Super Bowl, and yet for some reason they're not credited as much. And I'm okay with it because it's the Patriots. But let's be honest here. If you're looking back,
Hey,
that was pretty impressive.
Undefeated is undefeated is undefeated.
Tell that to the Boise State Broncos. A couple times they were undefeated and weren't crowned champions.
Touche, Piche.
The only word that rhymes my last name, as a matter of fact. You can look it up.
We'll do.
Well, since we were talking a little bit of NFL, do you want to stick with the NFL before we get to our big NBA?
Yeah,
preview?
let's do
We got
it.
plenty
Let's
of
do
time.
it.
There's three. I felt like there's three big games coming up this weekend. I think maybe the biggest one of them all is the Giants and the Jets. I know this one's close to your heart. These two teams only get together once every 4 years, so it's kind of a big deal anyway, but it means a ton to both teams. This is a must-win for these teams. Who's coming out on top? They both looked bad last week.
They look bad. I mean, the Giants, they make you believe one week when they defeated the Cowboys, and then this past weekend they lose to the hapless Redskins at home. Kind of a reminder of what happened earlier in the season when they lost at home to the Seahawks, who were struggling. So hopefully those two games won't come back to haunt the Giants, but now they have their work cut out for themselves. And on top of that, they have a New York Jets team that's coming off a lopsided defeat to the Philadelphia Eagles, who finally look like the team everyone thought they would be in the preseason. But with that being said, I mean, Rex Ryan has, added a lot of fuel to the fire for this game. I mean, Rex likes to do this. He likes to talk. He says he wants it to be their city. He still thinks they're going to win the Super Bowl. They need this game.
Sure.
Giants need this game. I think for the Giants, if they wind up losing, it could be the end of Tom Coughlin's reign as the New York Giants head coach. I think
agree.
he'll have extra motivation here to come up with a good game plan. At the end of the day, it seems like the NFL this year has decided on quarterback play. So if you believe that, you got to like Eli Manning over Mark Sanchez.
That's true. I don't think anyone was going to debate that one with you. Properly. Although maybe we haven't seen the best of what he has to offer yet, but I don't know if I believe Sanchez the way I believe Eli, only because, he's proved it. Yeah. But, so basically you're taking the Giants based on quarterback play. And I don't think that's a bad pick.
No, I think it's safe. Plus, with the NFL, I mean, it changes week to week. The NFL's so fluid. I mean, last week you have Green Bay Packers going into Kansas City. They get upset. Like I mentioned earlier, the Eagles were atrocious this year. And then they come out and they drop a 45 spot on the Jets.
Yep.
And then the Giants lose to the Redskins. You also have the Houston Texans, who had home field advantage and a bye clinched if they can go through the season undefeated, and they lose at home to Cam Newton and Carolina.
Yep.
So NFL, anything can happen. I mean, it's really exciting. I think in each conference, 11 teams are still fighting for playoff positions. So
3 of the 4 top teams in the AFC lost last week. The only one who didn't was the Patriots. So those buys are still kind of up for grabs.
exactly.
And that makes for exciting football. The other game I had down of interest was Philadelphia versus Dallas. You talked a little bit about Philadelphia's resurgence. They're actually still in the playoff picture, if you can believe it. And Dallas, of course, is involved in this because they'll be meeting the Giants in the last game of the year. And I tell you what, when we sat here a few weeks ago and the Giants had beaten Dallas, it felt like they were in the driver's seat. But then they didn't take care of business against the Redskins, and now they're taking on the Jets, which is essentially like a pseudo home game, but sort of away at the same time. And it's like, I don't know what the atmosphere is in there. I know it's a Jets home game, so they probably get to sell to all their fans first. But I'm
Right.
sure there's going to be a ton of Giants fans in there. So I don't really know who has the advantage there. But Dallas and Philadelphia this weekend, is this where Dallas finally puts their stamp on things and shows who they are, or is this where Philadelphia continues their run?
Well, I think a lot will depend actually on what happens in the Giants-Jets game. If the Giants do win, the Eagles are essentially eliminated almost from playoff contention. So if that happens, you might see a letdown with the Eagles, and then that'll make the Cowboys prohibited favorite in that game, and then it'll all come down to the final week of the season when the Cowboys come to play at the Giants. Conversely, if the Giants lose that game this weekend to the Jets, they have to hope and pray that the Eagles win so they could stay alive. So I think a lot will be predicated in terms of the mental state of teams on what the Giants do.
Right. It seems odd that those teams who are bitter rivals would have to rely on each other to get in the playoffs, but that's what happens when you have your own bed to make and then you get in and mess it up. The only other game I think between two powerhouses that is interesting to me is Atlanta versus New Orleans. A couple of teams who might be the second or third best team in the NFC, but who's really grabbing the reins there? Is New Orleans going to hold suit at home, or are the Falcons going to come in and beat them?
See, I think New Orleans will roll at home. I think Atlanta's a much different team on the road than they are at home. I think this is a statement game for them if they want to prove that they're in that top echelon of the NFC. Right now, most people would argue that the Packers, the 49ers, and the Saints are probably your three top teams, and then there's a gap to the next team. And I think that's where the Falcons are, and they're trying to prove that they're up in that upper echelon.
Yeah.
So I think if they can win that, they'll definitely make a statement that they're a force to be reckoned with in the playoffs. If not, I think it'll be one and done for the Falcons in the playoffs. But this game's also doubly important for the Saints because if they can win out, they need to hope that the 49ers stumble in one of their last two games, and then the Saints will have the second seed clinch and home field advantage.
And I think that was a big win on Monday night for the Niners. I thought that they were going to lose that game to the Steelers, but they beat a good team. And sure, they were at home, but they were under the bright lights, and they beat a good team. So I've changed my opinion a little bit on the 49ers.
Ooh.
I used to not believe in them, but that was the kind of game that they needed to win to make a believer out of me. I still don't know if I'd put money on them to win a playoff game, but those are the kind of games right there that make you think otherwise. Like, ooh, I don't know, because they actually did win a game at home against a playoff Super Bowl caliber team in the Steelers, who are maybe a little banged up, but whatever. They're still the Steelers.
Yeah, I think that game was bigger for the Steelers because if the Steelers would have won that game, they would have been in the number one position in the AFC. But because they lost, they dropped now to the 5th seed. So that means they would have to play 3 games, and all of them would have to be on the road. So I think it was a huge loss for the Steelers, and that's why probably Mike Tomlin played Ben Roethlisberger, even though he was injured. And now all the naysayers, all the hindsight quarterbacks, Monday morning quarterbacks are
Like
saying,
us.
yes, why did he play Ben Roethlisberger? But I kind of agree with the decision. Ben Roethlisberger, that's what he's known for, his toughness, his grit. He wills his team to victory. So if you're the coach, if you're Mike Tomlin and you ask Ben, can you go, Ben's going to say yes, and you just hand him the ball and you live with the results.
Come on. Why wouldn't you play him? Who's the Steelers' backup? Yeah.
Charlie Batch.
Oh.
Charlie Batch.
Oh, all right.
And Dennis Dixon.
Still, I'd rather have a little bit banged up Ben Roethlisberger in there than Charlie Batch, and that's no offense to him. He's a good backup, but if it's a big game and Ben can go out and play, you want Ben out there. He's a big, tough guy. He's a hockey player in football pads, for crying out loud. He can go.
Agreed.
All right, let's get to the NBA preview. We got a little over 10 minutes to get to it, so we may have to breeze through it a little bit. I've got it broken down by conference here, but I'm going to go ahead and just throw out my 8 Eastern Conference playoff teams, because I think the Eastern Conference, by the way, is I think probably the better of the 2 conferences now.
Interesting.
I've got Chicago having the best overall record again, then I've got Miami. I've I've got New York in the 3 seed. I think they're going to win a lot of games, especially in that Atlantic division. I've got Boston as the 4. I've got Orlando as the 5. Atlanta at 6. Indiana at 7. And Philadelphia at 8. Pretty much the same playoff teams that were in it last year with a little bit of shifting on the seeding there. But I just don't feel like I can look at any of those other teams in Washington, Charlotte, Detroit, Cleveland, Milwaukee, New Jersey, and Toronto. As much as I like the Bucks, I don't fear the Deer, and I don't fear any of the rest of those teams making any kind of noise in the playoffs or in the regular season.
Yeah, I'd have to agree with you in terms of who you have making the playoffs. The only other team I could see getting in would probably be the Bucks with the inside-outside combination of Brandon Jennings and Andrew Bogut. But only other thing I could see where I would disagree is maybe somewhat with seeding. I think the Pacers will probably be a little higher than you have them. But other than that, I like where you're going. I like where you're going with that.
Of course, that's just regular season, and everything changes when it gets to the playoffs, which we'll discuss in a minute. But in the Western Conference, I'll give you my 8. I've got Oklahoma City having the best overall record. I think they're in a weak division. They're going to get a lot of wins during the regular season. I also think that my number 2 team, the Lakers, are going to have a huge battle in the Pacific. I think it's a little bit tougher. And I've got number 3, I've got the Spurs. And at 4, I've got the Clippers, which is maybe a bigger bump than they deserve. I know they're getting a lot of hype right now. I feel like they're the Eagles of the NBA, but you never know. Then I've got the defending champions, the world champions, as Sean Marion would like to refer to them, the Dallas Mavericks. I've got Utah at 6. I've got the Minnesota Timberwolves coming into the playoffs at 7, and the Memphis Grizzlies at 8, where they will assuredly not win a game because that's what they do.
Wow, I think it's going to be the Wild Wild West this year. I think a lot has to do with the 66-game season, a lot of back-to-back games. So I think the veteran teams aren't going to push it as much, or they shouldn't. So like teams like the Lakers, I think, who know what it takes to win on the road, know what it takes to win championships. I feel like the Lakers, you may have them a little too high at 2. Because plus, Andrew Bynum's missing the first 5 games of the season, and Kobe took a nasty fall against the Clippers. He took an MRI. They say he's day-to-day, but he could miss a couple weeks. So if they do that in the 66-game season, if you start off 1-4, 1-5, it'll be hard to catch up. Plus, I think the Clippers aren't legit in terms of being a championship contender, but I think there's a lot to prove, a lot of fanfare. They have a lot of youth. Sure. So I think they're going to play up during the regular season. And then in the postseason, they'll probably get exploited by the more veteran teams.
That's why I feel like they're good enough to get enough wins to be the 4 seed. Right. But I'm not saying I would have them going to the finals or anything like that.
Gotcha.
Let's not get that crazy, because when it shakes out to the playoff time, you know everything changes. And once you get in, it's different. And there's going to be some big trades before the season's all over. That is definitely a factor.
It's definitely a wild card, especially if the Magic soften on their stance of keeping Dwight Howard. Because Dwight Howard's going to leave town, so if he's going to leave town, you might as well get something for him.
I think there's that point where they need to take a look, and I think when you take a look at the fact that Chicago, Miami, New York are probably going to be your top 3 teams, and then you got to throw in Boston there, so whatever. That's 4 teams competing for the top 3 spots. Orlando's not one of those teams right now. I mean, unless they decide to do something crazy, because they didn't add anything of substantial. I mean, they're not going to raise over that hump. And once they play a few games and realize that, then they're going to soften their stance. And off to L.A. he goes.
Oh, interesting.
Which is why I have the Los Angeles Lakers, led by a defiant Kobe Bryant.
So you've come full circle. You've come full circle. Now I see. Now I see why.
Yes.
So that's your finals.
That is my finals.
Lakers Heat.
I think it's Kobe Bryant's last time that he can take a team on his shoulders alone. And even though Dwight is going to be there, it's going to take. By the time he gets there, it's going to take him a while to get into the system. And I think Kobe is going to be the man. He's going to be the Black Mamba. We all know, and not all love, but respect. And I think that this is going to be his final, putting him on the back and taking him. But I think he's only going to take him as far as the finals. I think it's the Heat's time. I think they're going to win this year.
Now, what if Dwight Howard does not get traded to the Lakers? Who do you have coming out of the West?
If he doesn't get traded, because of what you talked about with the experience, I tend to think that maybe a San Antonio or a Dallas could do it. but I'm not really sure about San Antonio how they're going to do with this schedule. Whether their older players are going to get tired, or whether they're going to be rejuvenated. I'm not sure how they're going to do before they get there. If they're going to be injury free, but I think San Antonio or Dallas could do it if the Lakers don't make that final move. Oklahoma City, despite me thinking they're the number one seed in the West, I still don't feel like they're ready to make that jump. And I think if they have that number one seed on their back, that'll be like that undefeated thing where it's sort of like everyone will be gunning for them. And I think it's somewhere along the way they'll get bit.
See, I really like Oklahoma City. I really like what Kendrick Perkins did this summer. He lost 30 pounds. He's chiseled. He's in shape. I think what Oklahoma City's going to need is for Russell Westbrook to figure out how to play playoff basketball and not to think he's the number one option. That's what Kevin Durant's for.
Right.
If he can handle his role and lessen his ego, I think Kevin Durant's probably added more to his game, worked on his body. James Harden's another young guy who's coming into his own as he proved last year. Right. So I like Oklahoma City, but Dallas could be tough. I think Dallas, they lost Jose Juan Barea. They lost their defensive stopper, Tyson Chandler. But in return, they got Lamar Odom, which makes them more offensive-minded. But I think they're going to miss Chandler with his defense.
That's why I didn't believe in Dallas as much. I think that Chandler loss really hurts Dallas because that gave them an inside presence on defense that they need. And Lamar Odom's not it. Like you say, though, they will be more up-tempo, so maybe they'll have to change their style. I also think losing Jose Juan Barea off the bench really hurts them because he was clutch for them in the playoffs.
Right, and he caused several mismatch opportunities with his speed. And then the last team you mentioned who I'm kind of mulling over is the San Antonio Spurs. If you speak about Kobe getting old, I mean, Tim Duncan's ancient.
He is.
I mean, he probably needs a rocking chair right now. But I think it's their last go at it. I think last time we had a short season too, the Spurs won the title. So we'll see if that's deja vu again.
Good point.
And in the East, I kind of feel like you. I think that it's the Heat's turn. The Bulls upgraded at the 2 guard with Rip Hamilton, who has veteran and championship experience. But I feel like Rip Hamilton's probably a defensive liability. He's a little older. Mm-hmm. He's not going to be able to guard, Dwayne Wade or LeBron. So I think the Heat, with that year under their belt, not feeling as much pressure, will probably come out of the East against. I'm going with Oklahoma City.
Whew. All right. We shall see. So you think it's the Heat winning it, though?
Unfortunately,
we both have the Heat winning.
Yeah.
Not a big Heat fan.
No, neither am I. But
I think it's their time. He's going to get one at some point, right? Like, people know that.
Well,
maybe they don't want to believe it, but I mean, you got.
And we'll see. I mean, a lot can happen. Like you said, the big X factor are all these trades that can still go down.
Or injuries. I mean, the Heat are 1 or 2 injuries away from being an average team, too. Right. But that remains to be seen. Until then, the Southeast is all theirs to take, and maybe beyond. We only got a couple minutes left. I want to touch on who you think might be the Rookie of the Year. We talked about it a little bit before the show. I had 4 guys of interest: Kyrie Irving, Derek Williams, Kemba Walker, and Ricky Rubio, who's finally getting to play now with the T-Wolves. 2 of those guys from the T-Wolves. That's why I think they're making the playoffs this year.
Ooh. And they have Kevin Love, the double-double 2020 machine. So that's a solid pick for, to go out on a limb and take Minnesota. But I like Kemba Walker for Rookie of the Year. I think a lot of times statistics and numbers dictate who's going to win.
Sure.
And I feel this year Kemba Walker is going to have ample opportunity to score, especially when his team will be routinely down 20 points in the fourth quarter.
I agree. I think Kyrie Irving's also going to put up numbers with the Cavs for the same kind of reason. He's going to get a lot of playing time. But Derek Williams and Ricky Rubio are going to split votes from the T-Wolves, and maybe one of them will earn it, but they'll split it. I think Kemba Walker's going to get it. We got under a minute to go. Anything else you want to get in here before we go away for the holiday? We will be back next week.
We will be back.
Our awards show.
I'm looking forward to it. Looking forward. You going to get dressed up? Are we doing red carpet? What do we got going?
We'll cook something up. We'll talk about it after the show.
Okay. But Poinsettia Bowl tonight. Make sure you watch it.
Pass. Okay. Don't let your dogs eat the leaves. They're poisonous. All right, we'll see you next week. Thanks for coming.